What seemed like years ago, men's watches and men's rings were something that were more low key, right? Oh, but these days, the bling that men are wearing on their wrists and fingers are really getting a lot of attention. So in this week's What's It Worth, we decided to talk all about men's rings with Jeffrey Hess.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Hess from Old Northeast Jewelers. Thank you for having me again. Today we're going to talk about men's rings. Bought a nice little collection recently of men's rings. Unfortunately, with the exception of 5 of these, we just paid a little above the gold value. The reason is because this fellow was a pretty big guy and the gold value alone was so high that it almost precludes a jeweler from getting much more than the gold value. You know, every jeweler has a different markup. Some work on 20 or 30%, some work on double, some work on triple. You know, that's one of the interesting things about valuation and valuation courses that my wife teaches. By the way, we are the What's It Worth people. My wife and I write a column every Sunday in the Tampa Bay Times. So we're going to talk to you about the worth valuation of men's rings. Most men's rings are worth more than gold because they're much rarer, if you will, than women's rings. I would say we probably buy 200 women's rings versus every one man's ring. And men's rings are fun because depending on the period, they're collectible. Some of the early men's rings from the 1910, 1915 era are so small that a man probably wouldn't wear them today. Now these rings are from the 1970s when gold was so cheap that they didn't care, and they were putting a ton of gold in these things. Now we're going to go through these one by one, try to make it quick because we only have 4 minutes here. But all of these rings we paid a very fair price for, and we paid a little more than the gold for all of them. But a few of them we paid considerably more than the gold. And we're going to start with this one. This is a very, very fine garnet. Now, not all garnets are Czechoslovakian garnets. Some garnets are fancier garnets, more expensive garnets, and this is one of them. You can see by the very beautiful color. So we paid more than the gold value for this. By the way, if you're not selling your stuff to a jeweler like us, and there are many good jewelers in the Tampa Bay area who will evaluate the jewelry for what it is and not just the gold value, you're making a big mistake. This is worth considerably more. Now this one is just worth a gold value because this is what they call a smoky topaz. It's actually smoky quartz. And these things are very, very prevalent and essentially, you know, except for decorative purposes, worthless. We paid a little bit more than gold for this one, even though it was very heavy, because it's a beautiful piece of lapis lazuli. This is an interesting one. This is a Tanzanite. So we paid a little more, actually quite a bit more than the gold value for this one, because it's a very beautiful Tanzanite, very saturated blue color. Here's your blue topaz, very, very common. Here's another piece of blue topaz. At first we thought it was aquamarine from the color, but we put it on the refractometer. It turned out to be topaz. Had this been aquamarine, we probably would have paid $4,000 or $5,000 for it because it has a ton of gold. Next you have a piece of amethyst. Now amethyst is one of those stones that is pretty, but really it's just quartz again. So, you know, because it weighs so much, we could just pay the gold value for it, which was considerable, by the way. This one's fancy, but the stone is nothing to speak of. It's got a few diamonds, so we paid a little extra. This is just a piece of rutilated quartz, which we didn't pay a whole lot for, obviously. It's just quartz again. Same with this. This is a CZ, and probably going to repurpose this. It's a beautiful kind of Art Nouveau style, although it's from the 1980s. It kind of has an Art Nouveau style. So we're going to save that and put a nice stone in it when we get it. Here is another ring that is made out of smoky topaz, that is smoky quartz. And a nice little citrine, paid a little over the gold because it has a cool design. It's white and yellow. And these are sapphires. Now they're not great sapphires, but they are sapphires, so we paid a little extra for that as well. And next over here is just another little nondescript stone. So please bring in your men's rings if you have any. We'd love to take a look at them. We have 2 stores. We have one in Hyde Park Village on Swan and our original store on 4th Street in St. Petersburg, Florida.